But we start today's show by reacting to the news that Man City are suing the Premier League over their commercial rules. Now, for more on this story, talkSPORT's Tom Clayton has more.
Let me start by saying this has absolutely nothing to do with 115 charges. This action comes from Man City itself, and some have said it could be the start of a civil war in football. So why is it happening? Well, the Premier League has some rules in place that means if a club owner is linked to a company that sponsors said club, there has to be regulation about how valuable that deal is, what's called a fair market rule. Man City filed a claim in February, saying it's unlawful. They also say that having to have 14 of the 20 clubs agree on something before changing any rules discriminates against clubs like them. They're also suing the Premier League for damages if the independent court falls in favour of City. Well, a number of Premier League clubs, apparently between 10 and 12, have provided witness statements that back up the Premier League, whilst at least one other club, not publicly named, backs Man City. If successful, it could mean these big clubs with massive backers can spend whatever they want on transfers, driving up every player's market value. And this could actually help City defending those 115 charges when that's heard later this year in November. So this case will be heard over 2 weeks, starting next Monday. Will we hear the outcome? Strictly speaking, no. All of this is done behind closed doors, so unless someone very charitable leaks it to the press, we probably won't know the outcome for a fair old while.
And other clubs backed them, have they? And we don't know who it is. We can't speculate. No. I mean, why would we do that? It's just absolutely pointless. So what does it all mean, right? If you're sat there and you're listening to Tom Clayton explain it brilliantly, and you're sat there and thinking, I still don't know what it means. Let me and Benny explain it, right? Let me explain it.
Yeah, thank you.
Because it's really quite easy. It's really quite easy, right? So the rules regarding the APTs are aimed at clubs signing sponsorship deals with companies that are linked to their owners.
Of course, so like when people used to rename the stadium, and then that would be a way of getting money in? It sort of. I know what you mean. It's kind of right though, isn't it?
If the people that own the club also had a connection to the people that are naming the stadium. Right. Now, those rules were tightened following a vote by Premier League clubs. That was in February. So it means now that any such sponsorship deals have to be at a fair market value and not artificially inflated. So for argument's sake, if Tottenham Hotspur was partly owned by Vodafone, right, they can still allow Vodafone to sponsor the stadium, but it has to be for the going rate, roughly, that a club would charge a company that aren't affiliated with them. So
it couldn't be like it could be like 500 million.
No, if naming rights go for about 200 million, they would have to charge them that. They couldn't go, oh, you want to name? We need 3 billion. You can't. But if it's an in-house, in theory, that's what could happen.
So is it like when it used to be with the training grounds where a chairman would get the training ground bought by a company that he owned?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all connected to that. Okay. So if there were no such rules in place, then clubs could agree sponsorship deals as high as they wanted with no challenge whatsoever, which would, of course, increase the amount they could spend under profit and sustainability rules.
Of course.
Okay. So just to elaborate on that a bit more, Manchester United probably have the most amount of income of any club with regards to marketing and so on.
Of course, massive around the world.
Right. And there are other clubs that can't compete with them because they're Manchester United. They've been going for a long time. It's a club, it's a brand and so on, right? Mm-hmm. If Man City, these are all examples that I'm giving, if they want to spend copious amounts of money, they can't get anywhere near Man United because it's all to do with outgoings and ingoings, right? And FFP. But if Man City do allow another sponsor to come in that their club is affiliated with and they charge them a ridiculous amount of money, their incomings are a lot higher, so that means their outgoings, so they don't break FFP, but at the same time you have to question where the money's coming in and how it's coming in. Earlier on today, on the Matt LaFace and Murphy show, finance football expert Stefan Borson had his say on the matter between the Premier League and Man City.
The reality in cases of this nature are both sides have unbelievable representation. When you read one side's case, you look at it, you go, oh, well, they definitely won. And then you read the other side's case and you go, oh, well, they definitely won. Because you've got the smartest minds around producing the best arguments on both sides, and it's very, very difficult to say who's won on the basis of kind of one side of the case. You know, you're talking about the best barristers in the country putting forward arguments on very esoteric areas of law. So none of us are able to know for sure, but clearly some of the things that are being suggested in that piece seem to be very difficult arguments for City to make out.
I should go on as well. I don't want to confuse too many people, but I should go on because it's only been touched on. One of the things they're arguing, Man City, is the fact that they don't feel it's fair that for a vote to be passed by the Premier League, you have to have 14 of the 20 vote.
Yeah.
Because the majority of football clubs in the Premier League aren't as wealthy as Man City. So if there's a big vote going through that's to do about money, they feel as though the majority of clubs that are smaller than them won't vote in their favour, right?
Well, that's obvious because then the Premier League's a competition, so you're not going to vote to help another team potentially get stronger.
But one of the things they're taking to court over all of this is the fact that they don't think that's fair, that it has to get to 14, and they want it to get to 11, right? So effectively, just over 50% of the Premier League will have to vote one way for, in theory, a rule to be passed. Yeah. And that could lead to, because so many owners of football clubs are owned by Americans, that could lead to more or even games in the first place, but games being played away from England in America if they only need a vote of 11 or more.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the ramifications of where this goes are monumental.
I think Man City are also as well, they're not happy because a rule was changed in 2021 just as Newcastle getting taken over by their owners. Yeah. So, I mean, it's difficult because obviously we don't know the facts, but, I mean, it does. Where I look at it, I look at some of the smaller clubs that are trying to get into, and this is what Manchester City, I guess, are coming from, because they're almost saying, well, how are we supposed to, if we can't change the rules a little bit, how are we ever supposed to get anywhere near clubs like Manchester United, who've got the history, who've got the trophies, got the legacy?
That's right.
How are we ever supposed to be able to get to that levels if we're not allowing us? We've got all the money in the world. How are we supposed to progress our football club if we can't, if you're putting a cap on it? That we would never get there. And I guess for even smaller clubs than Manchester City, who listen, by the way, they have absolutely raked it in the last, in terms of trophies. Wow. Do you know what I mean? Last 4 Premier Leagues in a row. But if you're a smaller club like, even clubs like Brentford, even Brighton, who've done really well, it's almost like, how are they supposed to close that gap? You're talking about one-off seasons, really, for a club to surprise everyone, get an opportunity, but how are you supposed to sustain it?
Right, so here's the thing, in my view, there's 2 ways of looking at this, right? One is, if you allow this to happen, then you allow other foreign investors, billionaires, to get involved with certain clubs. Perhaps clubs, you mentioned Brighton, Brentford, right? Perhaps clubs that wouldn't necessarily attract billionaires, like I'm talking the wealthy of the wealthy.
Yeah.
This will allow multi-billionaires to start investing in the so-called smaller clubs, like Bournemouth, for argument's sake, right? And then that will allow more money to come into a club like Bournemouth than ever before, because with regards to marketing and money coming in, they're never ever going to compete with Man City and Manchester United. But if they're allowing this bill through and rich people come in and take over the club and they sell the naming rights for $2 billion, they can compete, right? So there is one way of looking at it, that more money will come into the Premier League. More money could, in theory, come into lots of football clubs. More players, better players, the best players in the world could come over to this country. Yeah. And we could be seeing a much bigger and better version of the Premier League. The flip side of that is, of course, if you don't have a billionaire owner,
you get left behind.
You get left behind. If no one wants to pick your club up and invest in it, then the gap between the big heads and even the middle of the road clubs becomes even bigger.
Well, you look at someone, again, I know we've got to break, but you look at someone like Newcastle. I mean, they must be thinking, well, Newcastle fans, and I remember we spoke to loads when they got taken over. It was huge. They can't do anything.
No.
The wealthiest club in the world can't do absolutely anything. They can only get to a certain level. And they're the wealthiest club in the world, and they're already talking about having to sell their better players because to align the books.
Yeah, let me exaggerate a point to prove a point, as Jason Cundy always says, right? So Abramovich was worth something like 9.7 billion. The owners of Newcastle have something like 350 billion.
Yeah.
Okay? That tells you how wealthy they are.
Yeah.
Abramovich 10, then 350. So in theory, if this bill gets passed, in theory, Newcastle could sell the naming rights to St James's Park to another company affiliated to the owners or connected to the owners of Newcastle. They could sell that
600 million,
5 billion. They could sell that for 5 billion. In theory, I'm exaggerating, but that could happen, right? Which is nothing when you got 350 billion.
No.
And then all of a sudden, that 5 billion comes in. Whoever the manager is, whoever it is, Eddie Howe, whatever, they can go, you've got 3 billion to spend on players. And all of a sudden, FFP, they're not breaking rules because it's all to do with income in and out. They're not. So it would work that way, but then the gap between Newcastle
is huge,
massive.
Yeah.
So there's two ways of looking at it. Listen, I just wonder if it was a Brentford that was taking this to court, would we have the same feeling that we do towards Man City? I'd love to get your views on it. It sounds convoluted. It sounds complicated. I don't really think it is after the explanation, hopefully, we've just given you. But we'd love to hear your views on it. 0371 722 344. It could change football. Well, it will change football forever. But will it be for the better or will it be worse? Incredibly interesting is that this is happening next week. Right?
Yeah.
It's going to take about 2 weeks, 10 days, something like that. At the end of the year, November, is when the 115 charges will start. That case will be heard. You've got Pep Guardiola supposedly saying at the end of 2025, he's off. Kevin De Bruyne reports today suggesting that he might be off for more money to Saudi. When we get to 2025, Haaland he hasn't signed an extension yet. We'll have 2 years left. This could be monumental for City if things don't go their way. It could be absolutely massive.
But what could happen? What do you think? When you say monumental, what they get?
Well, just
relegated, points deductions?
Well, if they get points deductions, if the manager goes, the star player goes, the striker goes, they're not allowed to spend what they want.
Yeah.
You can't dominate like that with all that against you. It's just impossible. Ryan is a Southampton fan. Hi, Ryan.
Oh, hello, lads. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Just finished work, so always good.
Oh, nice. What would you like to say? What's your view on this?
My view, I phoned you up at the start of the season when Southampton started doing quite well, and I said I didn't want to get promoted, and you said I was crazy because I said that even if we won through playoffs and all that, I still wouldn't enjoy it. I made my peace with that, but my point still remains the same, that now I know that next season I'm not going to get a season ticket because we're not going to play Portsmouth and we're not going to have a good laugh in the Championship. I'm going to watch VAR football in the Premier League. So we're going to be down the bottom competing. So it is relevant what I'm saying. The point is that we were never going to get to City. We were never going to close a gap with the likes of that. The only way that you can make things fair for the teams that are in between, because I don't think Southampton and Man City are a good comparison with each other, but like Villa and all the other ones that are in between that could possibly close the gap, they're going to need to have investment. Man City needs to win, and this needs to be open book for everyone, because otherwise the product that everyone is, gloriously moving towards, it's not actually going to be what it is, what it's meant to be. It's meant to be the best in world football. You can't then curb it and limit it and expect, the same outcome. You're not going to get that.
So Ryan, what you're saying is you think it'd be a good thing for football if Manchester City win this legal case?
I think it'd be a good thing for English clubs. I don't necessarily mean for football. It might be better for the Premier League, but I'm hopefully we're going to go back to the Championship and play some real football soon anyway. So I don't actually mind the circus, but like Mourinho said in that sound clip, it is a circus. Yes, open up the door and let everyone in, because you should enjoy it. If you're going to go, you must go whole hog with it.
Okay, Ryan, I hear what you're saying. Thanks for that. I just want to get through as many calls as I can. Thank you, Ryan. Andy's up next. Hi, Andy.
Hello, guys. You all right?
I'm great. How are you? You all right? You well?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. I just wanted to, I think we're at a crossroads now with the Premier League, where we've got a decision in the caller before. There's no guarantees anyone's going to want to invest in Aston Villa or in Luton Town or the next Ipswich to get promoted, so they will just fall further behind. I believe they should do what the other big money sport did, which isn't white for the white, which is Formula One. And a few years ago, they just said to all the teams, doesn't matter if you're Ferrari or Haas at the back, there's your budget cap, and you work to it. And the gap between the front and the back in Formula One is so close.
The problem you've got, right, comparing Formula One to football, is Formula One is one sport, right? Formula One is one sport. With football, if we have a budget cap here or a cap on transfers or money going out of the club, etc., then the players that the Premier League want to attract will just go somewhere else. They'll go to Spain or they go to Germany. You don't have that problem, that worry in F1. They have to choose their driver. The driver has to choose his construction team, and then that's it. So you'll see everyone. They'll all be on the same course.
I couldn't agree with you more, and that's probably why it's so scary that the leagues like Saudi Arabia are coming up, and this is how the Premier League look like.
Andy, sorry to interrupt you, but the last caller said that he felt like it would be a good thing for English clubs if Man City won this case. What do you think?
Yes, it would. It would be a good thing for English clubs, but I just don't think there's any guarantee that someone's going to invest in Ipswich when they come up. There's no guarantees. Ipswich have got no chance. They'll be going straight back.
Andy, listen. I know you're a goon about it. That's the way you keep poking at fans at Ipswich, yeah?
Why are you picking on Ipswich?
Use another club. Use Norwich.
Okay, yeah. Any one of the smaller clubs that are not, attractive to a foreign, like an American who perhaps doesn't know who they are, unless they happen to watch Welcome to Wrexham or something.
Yeah, but don't you think, right? But don't you think Ipswich would be attractive if you're a billionaire owner, you've got a club in the Premier League, you can build a 70,000-seater stadium, and you can attract the biggest names in the world to Ipswich? Don't you think it then becomes massively attractive?
Do you know what? I think it would, and that's why I say it'd be a great thing for English clubs, albeit without the guarantees. But I just think, should we just escalate and let it get out of control?
But you know what, Andy, and that's the thing.
Thanks, Andy.
Ipswich have got billionaire owners. Ipswich are so wealthy, we just can't do anything with it.
Yeah. What do you know the wealth of? I'm looking at Joe.
I know it's a hedge fund, and I know it's big.
All right, okay.
That billions.
All right, so I'm getting great information from both of you.
22 billion, I think.
Producer Joe says loads of different ones, and you say, I know it's a hedge fund.
I think it's 22 billion.
Big.
I think it's 22 billion.
It's literally like listening to Newsnight.
No, 22 billion, I think.
You've literally, 400 billion, 22 billion. Right, okay.
Yeah, but no,
I'm glad you're not accounting, Susie.
Yeah, I think, do you know, and that's the thing about, but I do think, and I said to you before, like, I don't want that to be, I'm trying to think of the word, but location plays a part. I'm telling you, because certainly the owners that I have been in company with, they're always like, London clubs, want to live in London, Harrods and all that. So London,
live in Harrods.
No, but you know what I mean. Always the Harrods and the shops they got down in London, Oxford Street. So location plays its part.
Yeah, of course it
so
does.
someone like, listen, great club, Cholton, for instance, South East London, lovely area, Blackheath, Greenwich, round there, beautiful.
Yeah.
If they're for sale,
Where at Crystal Palace, that area.
lovely. It's far though.
talkSPORT Drive. Super opinionated sporting debate. Monday to Friday afternoon from 4 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.